See how it works. All right. Welcome to the JoJo and Joe Show, a spin-off of the Two Joes podcast. And today we're talking about the Wuhan lab theory. Where did the coronavirus come from? Was it made by humans and it escaped, or was it naturally occurring in that weird market that they have down there?
Live animal market.
And
hi, this is JoJo. So we decided that what we would like to do with this, we're going to do a couple of different podcasts on this particular item. The one we're going to start with is one that Main Joe thinks is very reputable, comes from a reputable place. Then next we'll do one that seems to be a reputable place that's diametrically opposed to Main Joe. And then we will find one that looks a little kooky for me. And then we will discuss each one as we watch it. So, Main Joe, go ahead and introduce this show that we're going to be discussing today.
Well, we're just trying to get some facts, get some information, see what the so-called experts, what the media is feeding us as far as whether or not we should put any stock into this theory or not. And so this first one we're going to be watching is The Hill. It's Saagar's radar. He's going to be telling us a little bit about this Wuhan lab theory.
And it's when was it uploaded? About a month ago?
March 29th, yeah.
Okay.
A little over a month ago.
So 6 weeks ago. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay, we'll be right back. All right. Okay, here we are. We are back. We are 1.32 minutes into this, and we've already got some things to say about Saagar's lean on this segment he's doing.
Issue, yeah.
So go ahead.
All right. So JoJo coming at you again here. Sorry. It only took me a minute. So he makes the very valid point that it's important to get to the bottom of how this virus came about, how it came into existence, because we need to protect ourselves as a human race.
It's the only way to keep it from happening again.
Yeah. And so, it is important to find out to the best of our ability how it came about. So I liked that point. And then he kind of went right into the lean of, okay, it happened in China, and, they better answer all of our questions because here in the U.S., blah, blah, blah. And then he goes right into a quote from the World Health Organization. What is it? An unsubstantiated theory suggests the coronavirus accidentally leaked from a Chinese lab. Here are the facts. And so basically, they said there's no way that could have happened, and it was a natural thing that happened in the live animal market. But he says the reason the World Health Organization denied it is they were, quote, and I quote, licking the boots of the Chinese. So already we have the political thing coming up, which, I maintain, yes, it's part of our reality, but no, it's completely insane. Finding out how the coronavirus came about is going to save the whole entire world. And because the United States and China can't get along, boom, we're in a lockdown. Nobody's going to come up with any information. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I think what his point he was trying to make is that the World Health Organization is supposed to look out for all the countries on the planet, but yet they pretty much jumped in the defense of China almost right away, saying that there's no way this came from a lab. He's talking about this happened way back when the virus first got going, I think is what he's trying to say. What he said that made me think, okay, there's one strike already against you, dude, because you're already spewing stuff that's just wicked spin from an American, right? And that's when he said that it was because of American ingenuity that we had the vaccine so quickly. Well, if I'm not mistaken, the first vaccine was Pfizer, and it was from England.
Correct.
Well, American ingenuity just went over the little pond there and got the English to come up with the first vaccine. So yeah, already he loses a little bit of clout with me.
Mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
All right.
We'll be back.
All right, we're back, and so we're about 3:24 into this video. And you had something to say.
And JoJo just cannot keep her opinion to herself. So I have to admit, I went into this, no way. There's no way that this was human made, right? And I watched this virologist who's the former CDC guy. We're gonna watch
Dr.
this one
Redfield,
next.
right? They showed us a little clip from the video that we're going to watch next on CNN where he talks to Dr. Gupta. Those are two doctors talking to each other.
Yeah. And so, they had a little clip of that. And now, after seeing this guy talk about it, like, I don't know why, I am starting to believe it now. And I like that he pointed out there's no intentionality. Because I was stuck in this U.S. is blaming China, did this on purpose as some kind of weapon. That's kind of where my mind was going with it. And he posits the scenario that, hey, a lot of labs work with viruses, and if it's a respiratory virus, it's relatively common, if you're not extremely careful, for some of those workers to come down with those viruses. And he thinks that's how it all started, months before the breakout in Wuhan. So now I'm just, boy, you know how it is when something you thought, for what? How long has it been now? It's almost been since the virus first was noticed. That was in like December, maybe January, right? So now it's been a year and a half, just about, correct? All this time. And now I have to look at it completely differently.
That's interesting that he was so convincing for you.
Because he took out, my problem was the political part.
Well, and that's my problem. I'm looking at this guy saying, okay, he worked under Trump. He's got that kind of look about him, that tone in his voice that was like, this is only my opinion, da-da-da-da-da. And then like, I don't know. I didn't find, he didn't come off as trustworthy to me.
Interesting.
And then, again, that's probably because of my political bias against Trump and his administration,
But he took the political bias out of it for me when he said it was he said, actually, it's not the way he said it, I can't remember, but we'll discuss that one in a minute.
All right, we're going to get back to it. We'll be right back.
What?
We're back. So now Saagar's talking about how the New York Times is calling this Wuhan lab theory a debunked, a conspiracy theory, but offering no evidence. They're just saying it's been debunked, and they're expecting that to be debunked, meaning, I don't know. So that's kind of screwed up. And then he goes on to talk about the World Health Organization being in the pockets of the Chinese and how they're not allowed to work with certain scientists, and that's the kind of stuff.
Well, I have to say that that's how China is.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
We a few years ago, we met 3 Chinese businessmen who had brought their daughters to the United States, and they happened to be the same age as our daughter. And so we spent a lot of time talking to them over a period of, I don't know, maybe a week, would you say? And they were actually here for the 4th of July, so we took them to our local rodeo, and then we let off fireworks, all of which were made in China, of course. But they really pointed out how they don't have freedoms. They don't have anything. I mean, as Americans, we have no clue what life is like in China. You risk your life to go against the government. And so it's not that China is all of a sudden doing this because of the coronavirus. China has always been like this. So what do you expect? We're going to have to take it slowly with them and try to, make sure that the government understands there's no one threatening them. And the United States is so good at not being threatening. Not.
That's a good point. If we could just convince them to trust us and say, look, we don't blame you for anything. We know you didn't have any intention on hurting anybody. We just want to make sure this doesn't happen again. What can we do to prevent it? If we could win over their trust, perhaps we could get to the bottom of it. But I think what you're saying is because they don't trust us for good reason and we don't trust them for good reason, it's unlikely we'll ever get to the bottom of it, perhaps.
Well, and what would be nice is if the United States would step back, if everybody would just step back and let China do their own investigation and then let them invite experts from the countries that they trust. It's not so simple in a communist country, or actually a dictatorship at this point, for these things to be released. It's like so against their human nature culture that they have in that country. And then with Americans, We have our own problem. No one in the world trusts America anymore. You know, and for good reason. It's not just China. So, should we keep going?
All right, let's keep on rolling. And we're back.
So, Main Joe, I want you to comment on what we just heard.
Well, he just kind of summarized what the deal was. He said that there's no way this theory has ever been debunked. They have never examined that lab that they suspected came from. The Chinese government would have to stamp any report that came out of there as approved. So he said there's just no way in heck that, as you know, I think he put it really well, as it's a scientific way of inquiry. It's not debunked, and you can't just dismiss the question.
Well, and then what he said right after that was, it's, you know, one of the ways that the Chinese are probably looking at it, which I do think is valid, is that this is a way to get back at Trump. You know, let's not give the United States any information about anything because Trump was such a jerk to them, in my opinion. And it escalated. Like, Trump purposely escalated our relationship with China into a very negative place. And so it is partially, in my opinion, his responsibility that China is so locked down right now. The United States should just dismiss ourselves from the inquiry completely. We have no right to be inquiring into anything in China because of the political situation that we and China have created together.
Well, we're really not. It's the World Health Organization, but they are supported. They are supported by America and Chinese contributions. It's kind of like the UN. You know, everyone chips in to give them their budget. You know.
Yeah, but still,
yeah.
You know, it's not a Chinese thing to. Anyway, I already said that. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. If you do.
All right. We're back. Well, so Saagar just got done going over kind of where we're at now. This was like a month ago, so
6 weeks ago.
At this point, that WHO investigation should have come out by now, and he referred to it. And basically, he's saying that the head WHO guy has Chinese ties financially, and that the new Biden administration...
And he's an American.
The new Biden administration has come out saying, hey, we've got some information, we've got some facts that basically suggest that it was a lab leak, but, you know, it's still not enough to prove it, I guess, or something like that. So basically, their Biden administration's keeping that door open.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the WHO report says, because the WHO report is suspect for a number of reasons.
And so was he saying that the leader of the WHO is an American who has investments in China?
Essentially, yes. That's what he said.
Okay, so how is China supposed to trust the WHO? They can't. Literally, they can't.
Well, yeah, over the past year, the WHO has really gotten hit hard for all countries for this reason. I mean, Trump, I think, basically stopped financing them. He pulled out of the WHO completely. But yeah, who knows how much trust people have in the WHO right now. I know my trust in them is limited at this point. It's not 100%, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's too bad, you know. But anyway, yeah, let's keep going.
All right, we're back. So basically, he's saying that, you know, the reason the liberals and leftists wanted to censor, kick him, the Dr. Redding, off of that Maryland governor's board of advisors or whatever, is because they believe every single Chinese person is communist. And that's what the communist government wants you to believe, that if you're Chinese, you're a communist, you belong to the party kind of thing. That's kind of what I got out of what he was saying.
I don't understand what that has to do with
the racism part of it.
Well, no, that is racism, but what I don't understand is what does that have to do with whether or not the virus was escaped from a lab or made naturally because of the Chinese way of eating live animals.
Well, I think it's a way of them saying, look, it's all the Chinese's fault, and we're absolved. Americans are absolved. It's all
but that's bullshit.
And then he went
nobody
on,
did it on purpose.
Right, and then he went on to say that this gain-of-function research that they were doing in that lab, which is essentially taking this coronavirus and then jacking it up to see, okay, how bad can we make it? Can we make it so it's dangerous to humans kind of thing? That's what that gain-of-function is. And then theoretically, can we stop it? Can we have the antidote?
Yes.
Can we figure out how to?
Because of SARS and the other
exactly.
things.
So, and then now he's saying that there is a good chance that the Americans, the U.S. government, was sending money to this lab to help them with that gain-of-function research. So we might have blood on our hands too, because we don't want to have blood on our hands.
But that's not blood on anybody's hands. That's a lab trying to find a cure before it went global. You had an epidemic, and it was scary, and then you had another one 2 years later, and that was even scarier. And then they're trying to prevent a pandemic. That's what that lab was doing. And now we know how easy these respiratory things can escape the labs. And in China, maybe they didn't have the best controls. It was cheaper to do it in China because the U.S. is too expensive. It's not anyone's fault.
Well, there is a bunch of...
Well, it's the U.S.'s fault for being so...
Gain-of-function experimentation and investigation is kind of suspect in and of itself. It's not allowed to happen in the U.S. When Obama was president,
for good reason.
He said, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Because it is dangerous. It is scary. But but your point is well taken too, that it's a way of getting ahead of these viruses if you can do it right. But if they get away from you, well, then now we know what can happen.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yeah.
We're not even sure for sure if that's what happened or not. But in my mind, it's definitely possible. And like Crystal was pointing out, it kind of, Occam's razor, it's the simplest explanation of all this.
It is. It's true.
It is. There's a lot of weight behind this theory, I think, as far as I'm concerned right now. And I'll be following it closely from here on out, I think, to see what else comes out about this. But we may not ever get to the bottom of it just because there's too much
political
crud in the way. Yeah. Okay, so we finished the video and we made our comments along the way. If you have a comment, by all means, leave it in the box or the comments section below this video. Please, we'd love to hear what you guys think.
We really would.
Because we only can go by the information we're given and the videos we click on, and Saagar did a decent job, I think, of giving us all the info and not being overly biased, but you could definitely tell he had some bias going on.
Yes, and as do we all.
Yeah, I do, for sure.
As do we all. And the trick is being able to take a look at yourself and not run away screaming.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what they're doing. No one wants to be blamed for this, so they're running away screaming, "It wasn't me,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't do it, it was that damn bat."
Yeah. Okay, well, we will see you guys next time. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome back to the Two Joes podcast. Today we are talking about the coronavirus. What else?
This is actually the
Yeah, this is the JoJo and Joe segment of the Two Joes podcast. So we're talking about the coronavirus today. And so JoJo here has a doctor that she has some trust in.
Yes, I do. So I'm sure many of you have heard of him, Dr. Gregor. He started out as a virologist, and he worked very hard up until the late 80s, I do believe, or maybe early 90s, trying to convince governments of the very thing that started happening with the bird flus epidemics that we've had. But he gave up because he wanted to help people, and so instead he moved into nutrition. And so I have some unique nutritional needs, and he knows a lot about it, and he's very good, and he's very well spoken. And I've watched some of the, from the 80s collections of him speaking about viruses, and he did. He predicted it so accurately, exactly how it would happen and everything. So he's smart. He knows what he's doing, and he's still, the name of his group is called nutritionfacts.org. I urge you to check it out. They have very good nutrition facts. But also, he will answer questions about virology still as well. So let's listen to what he has to say.
So you said he predicted accurately.
Yes.
So what did he predict?
Bird flu.
Okay, I see. All right, yeah, so he's on he got a brand new little treadmill. He's walking, he's talking, he's answering questions.
And he does this like once a month, I think.
So let's see what he has to say here about another pandemic, our next pandemic.
If we don't stop animal agriculture, how long could it be able to really worse bad? Okay, pandemic. Stop and/or change animal agriculture. Certainly, according to the CDC, the leading contender for the next pandemic after COVID-19 is a bird flu virus by the name of H7N9, killing about 40% of the people it's infected so far. Imagine a virus infecting billions where death is nearly a flip of a coin if it retains its human virulence. Thankfully, it's not yet learned how to transmit person to person, but if it did, you thought COVID-19 was bad. It's about 100 times deadlier than COVID-19, which is, I think, last time I checked, about 0.4% fatality. Excuse me. Soon, we don't know enough about the biology of pandemic viruses to be able to predict accurately, but obviously the more billions of chickens and pigs that we create on this planet, billions more spins there will be at pandemic roulette. It's not worth.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. But you can see he has a bias.
Yes, obviously.
Not that it's a bad bias.
Well,
but
his bias is not a bias unless you look at the bias that's already happening. Does that make sense? He isn't arguing with where the coronavirus came from. He is pointing out that the last two bird flu epidemics came from the conditions under which we grow animals.
Industrialized,
especially chickens. Yeah.
Conditions. Yeah. And so he says,
all over the world.
And so he's predicting that the next pandemic is already there. He even mentions the specific strain, the HL91, whatever he said,
789.
that kills 40%. The only reason it hasn't started happening yet because it hasn't figured out how to jump from human to human.
Which, really supports what I'm saying about the bat. Okay? This one was a coronavirus, number one. Why were they trying to, what's it called? Make it stronger?
Do the...
Anyway, why was the lab working on a coronavirus? Why weren't they working on a bird flu virus? That's the one that we were all so scared about. So it supports it more that it transmits to humans and is so virulent already because bats are mammals and humans are mammals and birds are not mammals.
Maybe they were starting on a less deadly virus. It's 0.4%, whereas this bird flu he's talking about is 40%.
But couldn't they work on a less virulent bird flu? It's the shape of the virus, the type of the virus is so different that it's not like you're studying even the same thing. You might as well be studying zebras versus pigs.
But maybe they were looking at something that was closer to us, a mammal versus a bird.
Perhaps that's a good point. That is a good point.
And gain of function was the word we were looking for.
Yes, gain of function.
Gain of function is when they take a virus and boost it up to see if they can make it
stronger
and transfer between people, I think, or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what that means.
It's
humans screwing around with viruses.
Trying to vanquish something which is a real threat for humanity right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was our little segment on Dr. Gregor. JoJo suggests you go and look him up at
nutritionfacts.org.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
For the JoJo and Joe.
All right, welcome back to the JoJo and Joe Show, a spinoff of the Two Joes podcast. I'm here with JoJo. We are currently watching Dr. Redfield and Dr. Sanjay Gupta's interview of him on CNN. And JoJo, you had some comments you wanted to make.
Yes, so it's pointed out in this interview that Wuhan, which is actually a huge, beautiful city.
It is.
Very modern. Not at all what your average American is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
LOL. But basically that there is a company that has been experimenting on bat coronaviruses. That is a known fact.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's put it this way. He presents it as a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to state that for our viewers, and let's see what happens from here.
All right, we'll be right back.
Do an intro, though, because this is a new section.
I can put it on later. So we're back. Listen to a bit more of Dr. Sanjay Gupta wrapping up or summarizing his interview with Dr. Redfield, the former CDC director under President Trump.
So is my understanding that Dr. Gupta works for the CDC currently under Biden?
Dr. Gupta works for CNN.
CNN, as a reporter. Okay.
He's kind of a famous
reporter.
doctor. He was they wanted to make him Surgeon General at one point, but he turned it down. So he's not a virologist. He's been hovering around politics for a while, but no, he's not a virologist. He is a doctor.
He's a doctor,
medical doctor,
who currently is working for
CNN as
News.
an advisor, and so that they know they can make sense of the information they're getting.
Okay,
makes
understood.
sense. Yeah. He's a pretty trustworthy guy from what I've seen over the years. He's been around a while.
Well, and I want to point out that initially at the beginning and part of this, they do show parts of the actual interview with Mr. Former
Dr.
CDC.
Redfield?
With Dr. Redfield,
mm-hmm.
pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very defensive from the first word to the last. Of course, we're only in this little thing hearing a bit of it, but somebody is not that defensive if it's not true. Generally, when people get really defensive, it's because you're getting pretty close to the truth. This guy, poor guy, in Trump's administration, why didn't he come out with it? You know what I mean?
Well, Trump threatened everybody. What do you mean? Why didn't he come out with it?
Well, because
he was scared for his career.
It supported what Trump was saying. So here he was working under Trump, who was putting out all these rumors that China started the virus, and this guy has information that supports that. Why would Trump suppress that? Why would he have to wait until he's former CDC director to say it? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because he says he's allowed now to have opinions. Maybe when he was CDC director, he didn't feel like he was able to put forth opinions and theories.
You're going off the deep end here.
No, really. You're a CDC director. Are you going to sit there and put out opinions and theories?
Okay, when you're president.
I'm CDC director, and it's my opinion that this came from a lab in China.
Okay.
And I have no proof to back that up.
He didn't need to.
No, that's irresponsible.
No,
he wouldn't do that.
That's not what he said, Kay. Number one.
He said, I'm allowed to have opinions now.
He did say that. But what I'm trying to say is, number one, this guy's a virologist, right?
That's true.
Okay. And he's working under Trump, right?
Right.
And Trump is the one who's putting out the rumors that his opinion supports. And it's not just an unsubstantiated opinion because he's a virologist. He just happens to be the CDC director at the moment. So why would he not come out with a statement supporting his president? That is my question.
That's a good question. But again, I think it comes down to there was just no evidence to back it up. And he doesn't want to cause a panic. He doesn't want to piss off the Chinese.
All of a sudden, where's this evidence? Why now?
And he even said it's an opinion, and he's no longer CDC director. That's why now.
Okay, but all right. It's just everything is feeling really weird to me about this for some unknown reason.
Well, I think this all these interviews and stuff took place back in March, and I think it was coming up because the WHO was about to release their investigative report,
which they have not yet released.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No one's talking about it now.
Yeah, let's keep going then. We're on the road.
Yeah, either they decided the report wasn't worth the paper it was printed on, or it still hasn't come out, which is possible.
Or it came out and the media suppressed it.
Yeah, it came out and the media didn't like what they had to say, so they just said, screw it, we're not going to report on it. It's possible, too. All right, and we're going to go back to, I guess they're done with Dr. Gupta, but the video continues for another 5 minutes, so let's see what they have to say. We may or may not come back after listening to the next little bit of this, but we'll see. Be right back. All right, so we just wrapped up that CNN video. They did a little wrap up the three. They brought in a reporter, Josh Rogan, or whatever his name is.
Rogan.
Yeah, Rogan. And he's saying basically, yeah, the WHO has conflicts of interest. The Chinese are not motivated to give up all the factual information and be transparent because it just doesn't serve them, because they feel like all we're looking for is blame, blame, blame. And
Or whatever they feel.
But he did say that even the Biden administration could be more transparent, because they're saying they have all this evidence pointing at a possible lab theory, but they haven't shown it to us yet. So,
well, and I did get my question answered. However, the reason that the former CDC director is choosing to step out now with this is because he was withholding it because it would support the Trump administration, which he did not like while he was part of it. So there's my answer. It was political, and I'm, that kind of thing makes me feel less proud to be an American.
Yeah, that did answer a question for me, too, because I assumed because Redfield was working for the Trump administration that he was a Trump supporter.
Me too.
Well, and this guy's suggesting that is not the case.
Yeah. All right.
So we could wrap up our Wuhan lab theory right here if you want. However,
let's go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I've got one more person I'd like to bring into this discussion. He is a comedian, a funny guy. I don't know, something about him resonates with me. I like his opinion. I like hearing what he has to say. He's a fast talker.
Quite an intro.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
He is Russell Brand.
Okay.
He's got an opinion on everything, just like me. And he's about to enlighten us with his take on all this. So his video is entitled, let's see, where is it? COVID cover-up. Did it come from a lab?
Here we go. Clips. You should clip him saying that. And
We're back.
It's pretty much impossible to.
So we're watching this Russell Brand video where he's talking about COVID cover-up. Did it come from a lab? And he's, it's educating us on where we were back in the early days of this. And and you wanted to say what exactly now?
If we are allowed to do 30-second clips, you need to rewind it and play what he just said.
All right. What did he just say?
Statements
Not this
to
part.
Scientific groups. This action is presented in ways that are favourable to
Here we go,
particular
right here.
outcomes that media can be persuasive. That's why there are different
strains of media.
This
I
type of
like
media
that.
is preferable if you've got those kind of political views. This type of media is favourable if you have these type of political views. I'm trying, as I'm sure you are too, to have some understanding of the truth, both an inner truth about myself and, as best as I can, some kind of objectivity about the world around me, and increasingly that becomes difficult. Now,
Pause
this is
right there.
Yeah, well said.
Increasingly,
Well
that
said.
becomes difficult.
It has become more and more difficult, and and it's one of the things I credit Trump with getting right, that the media it's got its own spin on things, and there's different strains of it, and some of it is just blatantly fake and false.
Well, and I love the fact that he's amazing. He uses the word strain as if it is an infection, which it is. It used to serve a purpose, and then when humans learned how to do war against each other, it became propaganda. And there's a big difference between informative media and propaganda media. And I believe that in the United States, it is practically impossible to find informative media. This is why we're listening to this guy who's from where?
Who's a comedian from England.
Yeah, okay. So in the United States, we have lost the ability to actually find the truth. I remember coming upon a website that helps you. It gave you like 5 different things to look at before you believe something you see on the media or online. And I'll have to find that again. But he's saying it's becoming increasingly impossible.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, we're watching the Russell Brand video, and you just had a moment, JoJo.
It was a holy crap moment, and he makes a very good point that scares me all the way down to my little toenails.
What was it?
Well, I want, you listeners out there to watch it for yourself, because he's funny and he makes good points, and we're about halfway through. Is that correct?
We're 7 minutes into it, 8 minutes
So
into it.
he basically just said that his concern regarding this turning of informative media into simple
media?
propaganda media is going to slowly erode the world's confidence in science itself.
Yes.
So, what that means to me is that the truth is going to cease to matter and superstitions will be inserted in their place, and we might as well go back to the Middle Ages. It's very concerning. What he just said is a very real possibility, in my opinion. Unfortunately,
I think it's already happening.
Yes.
JoJo. I mean, come on. Look at the whole fake news thing and these people having an insurrection because they thought Trump won the election because Trump just stated that he did. No proof, no evidence. Over 40 court cases were dismissed because they had no evidence. But yet he won the election.
Well,
it's already happening, and now it's happening in the scientific community as well. People aren't trusting Dr. Fauci and his mask mandates and lots of other stuff. Yeah, I think it's already here.
You're right.
It's already here.
It is concerning. I have to admit that up until this moment, I've been saying that it was just a just a Trumpology. What would you call it? Just a reaction to Trump. And you are making a very good point that we have now, even with the Biden administration, stayed in that place of misinformation.
Yeah, people don't trust government. They're not trusting scientists. They think the world is flat. They don't think we've ever been to the moon. I mean, they think the Civil War was about states' rights.
Well, and we're talking about in America here, okay?
Yeah. So,
we're not talking about any other country. Let's make that clear because we don't know what's going elsewhere.
on over there. Yeah.
However, I do have a cousin who lives in southern France, and pretty much the world thinks the U.S. is insane.
Well,
and that the people are sheep.
Well, that being said, though, they're not absolved from this whole phenomena because look what the whole Brexit thing in England was, to me, a similar deal where just misinformation got out there, a lot of biases and fake news and boisterous politicians putting out bold claims that have no backing of and people believing it. And so I don't think they're off the hook, but it might be worse in America just because we have so much influence in the world.
Well, if it has spread to England, that I just find that terrifying. Because you think England remembers much better what happened in World War II. Every single English citizen went through that war. Okay, that not so in the United States. Most of us were just observing.
Well, I got two things there. A, our memories are not that good, and B, what was my B? Damn it, I lost my B.
Well, just don't think too hard. So what I'm asserting is that if...
Oh, I got my B is that every time I get bummed out and depressed about how crazy things are getting and now, everything just seems to be basically heading toward chaos.
Off the rails.
I look back at history and it's always been this way. It seems like it's always been this way.
Well, I disagree. I think that unfortunately so far, in order to come together as a larger group, humanity requires violence. And although this virus results in a lot of violent deaths, it hasn't pulled us together at all. If you think about World War II and how it pulled at least...
Or even 9/11, pulled the country together, right?
Well, that's a whole other ball of wax, but and we haven't evolved to the point yet where we can come together to save ourselves. Let's face it.
Oh, that's totally true. Yeah.
So, and then the thing blocking that, I do truly believe, is that propaganda. And the reason propaganda has taken over is because of our system of allocating resources using money.
Well, and that's just it. The media is owned by like 5 different companies, all the media in the nation.
Yeah, so the rich...
they don't want us to fight global warming because it affects their bottom line. They don't want us to do this or that because it affects their bottom line. They don't want the truth to get out because it affects their bottom line.
How insane is that? They're going to die just like we are.
I know. Their children aren't too. Their children are exposed to the same poisonous air that we're breathing.
We digress, though.
Yeah.
So let's return to this
Good
is
old
a
Russell.
very good video. I highly recommend it.
Well, I disagree with what he's saying here. So he's basically saying if it's stemmed from wildlife, then it's no one's culpable. But if it stemmed from this lab experiment, then they're culpable. Well, actually, they're not. I mean, ever since the beginning of this pandemic, those damn wet markets are pissing me off. They're culpable for having those things not regulated. Get the damn bats off the top of the ferrets or whatever the fuck they are, the civets. You guess got to be regulated if you're going to have a wet market like that. You can't just set it up for virus breeding. So I still think there's culpability there. So I don't know why he's thinking if it stemmed from a wet market, no one's culpable.
Well, I think that this is an example of how much a simple fact can be twisted and looked at in the opposite way of what the fact actually is all about, right? So the fact is there's this new, COVID-19 that's killing 0.4% of the population of the earth right now. And we should be fighting it together. But instead of doing that, we're arguing about where it came from.
Culpability. Blame.
Not because we want to find out where it came from, but because we want to place blame.
Oh, well,
and in both
true.
situations, blame can be placed. Look at how angry you are about those wet markets. How angry do you think people are going to be if it was done, quote, on purpose? See, it can be bent into that when really those virologists are the ones that are going to save humanity. If they could have found a way to have the vaccine before it happened, right? Mm-hmm. This is going to get worse. We're going to have a worse one come next, right? It's scientifically proven. But again, nobody believes that because it gets twisted. So I think his point is you can twist it either way. Either way, somebody's going to get blamed. And that's going to stop the actual
good research
belief,
that's going on.
Scientific research will now be
so that's
stopped.
A good point. Yeah. So we can regulate the wet markets. Okay, let's say we do that, but let's say it did come from the lab. Are we going to stop the lab from doing gain of function research?
That's what they're going to want to do.
Save us in the future. Maybe we just need to regulate them better and make sure that if we can put some more stop gaps in there so that this virus won't escape again. But maybe that's impossible. Maybe that's a pipe dream. But
here's the thing, whether or not they're able to continue doing research, I don't know if it'll get outlawed in the United States, if it'll get outlawed.
Well, it already has been. That's why it's taking place in China.
Okay, so let's say in China it gets outlawed. There just will be another place that they'll find to do it because scientists are the ones who are going to say. That's the real issue, is that belief in science is what is going to be completely gone down the tube.
Yeah, see, I believe in science, but I have a problem with prove to me that this gain of function research is necessary or it is important. It is worth doing because Obama evidently decided that it was too risky.
Well, and we just don't have enough information. We're not virologists.
Right. All right. We'll be right back. All right. So we're back. And we probably already discussed this in the previous segment, but we just came back from a little break and we want to add a little bit more to it, apparently. This culpability thing that Russell is talking about, he says there's two theories. One where it happens in wildlife and no one's culpable. The other is in the lab where there's culpability. And I mentioned that I thought, wait a second, they're still culpable if it happened in a wet market. But Russell's making it sound like, that happened out in the wild, critters running around in the forest, and it happened. Yeah, and then the point, I completely agree. And then the point that I want to make is earlier, when he's reading these different things from these different, reports that these virologists have made, he like on the one you can see the guy, there's the words and he's reading the words, and then underneath it, like in the news, there's a different thing that actually says that the lab in Wuhan had no
safety, or it was something like that. Do you remember seeing that? Okay, so it's interesting that you don't even remember seeing that. So this is what I mean by propaganda, right? So you have that picture of the guy with the words that Russell is reading, and then underneath it is a line. Don't go back. It's actually a little bit further back, I think. But anyway, there we go. Safety in Wuhan lab lower than needed. You did not see that. In your subconscious, however, you have absorbed it. Okay, if my conscious mind can see that, I can say, okay, that is propaganda, because there's no proof. This guy isn't even talking about that.
Yeah, well, that's why I ignored it. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? I just want to know what this guy is saying.
I know, but main Joe, my point here is that if your conscious mind cannot see it and deflect it, it gets absorbed into your mind. So that little by little, the more you see that they're questioning the safety in the Wuhan lab,
well,
you're going to agree with it more because you've seen it more by repetition.
If we're talking about the virus escape from the Wuhan lab, that's obvious. That goes without saying.
It says safety lower than needed for what? Like, were they breaking the rules? Like, they're not giving you any information.
Yeah.
All
it's just a generalized. I see what you're saying. It's a generalized statement that they put out there just to feed your brain what it thinks it wants. And
so this is actually a good time, if you're okay with this.
Yeah, go for it.
Bring up my thing. So when the whole fake news thing really first started, because we didn't grow up with this. There weren't computers when we were kids. I mean, that's how old we are, right?
Nope.
So it's
at least not home computers anyway.
Exactly. No computers.
Well, there were computers since the 60s.
In the 80s. Okay, fine. Mindtools.com. This is where this comes from. Okay, so what is fake news? There are two kinds. Stories that aren't true. They're invented, for a purpose. Or stories that have some truth, but they're not 100% accurate. For example, this one where all it says is safety in Wuhan lab is lower than needed. But where's the rest of the information? It quickly attracts an audience and can become entrenched as an urban myth, which is kind of what I'm saying. But the important thing here, there's a lot more information. I encourage you to check it out, is we have 6 things that we can do. Number 1, develop a critical mindset. That's what I mean by you need to recognize what this says and reject it. Okay, if there's he doesn't talk about it, if there's no proof, then that's just propaganda, right? That's what I mean by a critical mindset. It has to be a conscious mindset. Number 2, check the source. So if we really did believe this, right, we could go and we could check the source. We could look up the guy's name that's speaking and see if he really said that. See who else is reporting the story, which is exactly what we are doing right now. We've listened to 4 different things on YouTube.
3 different videos,
yeah.
4 different people or so. Yeah.
Yes, and then examine the evidence, which we haven't yet. We're just discussing because right now we've found 0 evidence about either thing, right?
Good point. They say there's evidence, but we haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it, so it's not it. We
It's
haven't
speculative.
examined anything
Yeah.
yet. Yes, and then number 5 is don't take images at face value. And that's important because these days it's so easy to alter an image.
Right.
Which that one will have to come up when we discuss UFOs, unfortunately. But and then very lastly is check that it sounds right. Okay, so listen to this: safety in Wuhan lab lower than needed. That doesn't sound right. Wuhan lab safety procedures were violated. Okay, that sounds right. This sounds made up. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's a
makes
very
sense.
subtle thing, and it's your opinion. So all you're trying to do with these 6 things is decide what you accept as truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least be aware and cognizant of what you're accepting as truth, what you're doing.
Yeah, because you can really get snowed under if you don't pay attention.
Definitely.
The media, the propaganda is very good these days.
We're only human. We're very susceptible. We have a crocodile brain and an analytical side of our brain, and that crocodile brain is where everything hits first, and it's fight or flight.
And that's what I mean by the subconscious, right?
Yeah.
So safety, right there, you go into fight or flight. The word safety, lower, right? That's what you see if you're not paying attention. Safety is lower than needed. Right? Yeah. So you got to remember with your conscious mind, cancel. I don't know that that's true.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
All right. All right, so Russell is basically looking into this interview done with this guy named Wade, who's a science writer, I guess. And so Russell is saying, basically, when you question science, you got to realize you're also questioning some of the most powerful, influential people on the global stage, right? There's lots of money involved in these corporate pharmaceutical companies. I mean, look what's happened with the coronavirus alone. Billions of dollars of no-bid contracts given to these guys to come up with a vaccine. Here's billions of dollars. Go find a vaccine for us. And then once they find it, okay, now we want to order 100, 200 million doses. You know,
and after you paid us,
there's a lot of money to be made here. Yeah, and that's even before coronavirus happened. What happens is, you know, the U.S. government helps out some of these people like Pfizer and other Johnson & Johnson people making vaccines for R&D, research and development and whatnot. But then they're not allowed to negotiate prescription drug prices for Medicare. How crazy is that? That right there just stinks to high heaven to me.
Well, I don't really...
But I'm getting a little off track.
Yeah.
So let's go back to questioning science is questioning some of the most powerful, influential people on a global scale.
Well, yeah, and what he said was, he goes, it's not just science. You've got science, you've got politics, and you've got money. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to even take it further down. You've got science, you've got power, and you have money. And I'm going to take it even further down. You have science, and you have money. And I'm going to take it even further down. You have money, and money will tell the science what to do. And if the science doesn't do what the money wants, then the money finds scientists that will fake whatever it is so that they can keep their money.
And their positions, yeah. Like Russell mentioned, this letter that was written by signed by 20 virologists back in February, shortly after this virus was released on the world. And they were saying, oh, there's no way this came from a lab. Well, then you dig a little deeper, you consider the source, and you find out that he has a vested interest in this Wuhan lab and not being from a lab. And so no wonder they signed the letter, you know? It's
exactly. That's exactly what I mean. And it's, in this current reality, money equals survival. And so, a lot of this, I'm not judging the scientists that choose survival over truth.
Yeah.
Because in this reality, truth is not important at all. Truth is nothing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's taking a beating, that's for sure.
If it were,
there's not a lot of.
It would be more valued, and
yes,
it's not valued at all.
Truth
What's valued is money.
Valued.
Period.
I hope that truth makes a comeback and is valued more highly, but just trying to determine whether or not it's truth is becoming more and more difficult, and so I don't know if that'll ever happen again.
Yeah, well, and like I said, those steps
they
are
help.
important, and that's
they
what
help,
we do with these podcasts.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah, we're trying to
really enjoy it, looking at it from a lot of different perspectives, and realizing that.
And we want to hear yours down below too. Tell
Please.
us your sources. Tell us your evidence. Tell us your opinions.
So far, we really haven't found any evidence, but let's keep going.
No, but you know, if nothing else, what we've seen today has, at least in my mind, ruled back in the lab theory. If nothing else.
Yeah, I agree.
The way that you would we read the comments, and we're interested in getting to the truth. If there is such a thing as truth, and my sense is that there is such a thing as truth. There is complexity in truth always, but it's something that together with free and open discussion, with transparency, and with the extraction of economic and financial imperative, we can perhaps reach together. Like and subscribe.
All right. So there was the end of the Russell Brand video.
And he's talking about truth. And whether or not it exists, and whether or not you can find it. And the last two things he said were the extraction of financial and economic, financial and political. If you extract the financial and the political, you can get to the truth, was what he basically said. Would you agree?
closer to the truth for sure. Absolutely.
I mean,
the reason I hesitate is because, one of my favorite shows is Star Trek. And one of the things that is so cool about it is that they don't talk money. They never have money. The Federation officers, as far as I know, they don't even get freaking paid. They just do stuff. If they need food, they go to the replicator. There's no money involved. And we're watching Deep Space Nine now, and they're talking about Earth like it's a utopia. Like everyone's got plenty of food and a place to live and all of this. And no money is being exchanged that I can tell.
I agree.
But still, there's controversy. There's political people positioning themselves for political gain, even without money
power
involved.
Yeah. So power.
So closer to truth, maybe not absolute truth.
The quest for power is different than the quest for money, but they're in our society they're equated at the moment.
For sure. Yeah.
Hopefully we can evolve out of that, because it does make it very difficult to find the truth, and I think that was his main point.
Yeah.
And that the freedom to be able to discuss this stuff without being censored is a key part of that.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I try to name everybody Joe and try to keep our identities as under the rug as I can, because I don't want these, just because we're sharing ideas and having an open and honest discourse, I don't want that to come back and kick me in the ass.
And where are we again? Where are we living? We're actually Americans, and we do not have the freedom to express ourselves without the fear
of cancel culture, of people stalking us online,
without
or
the
whatever.
fear without fear.
Yeah.
We cannot express ourselves without fear as Americans. That right there.
Yeah, and COVID has really
insane.
brought that out more than anything. That's one of the reasons why I'm so shell-shocked. I mean, these days I'm even a little bit apprehensive, because if someone sees me wearing a mask, are they going to come up and say, "Hey man, take that mask off," Are they going to do that? Because I've heard it's happened. I mean...
Well, and for me, I completely agree with you. I hate that kind of conflict. And so my go-to is, hey, it's a choice that I'm making because I have a little nephew who's going through cancer treatment. And it's true. I would be less apt to wear a mask all the time if that were not the case. And if people want to judge me for that, they can.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, though, because the mask is there to protect you from giving it to them, not from them giving it to you. So if some guy without a mask comes up and starts berating you because you've got a mask on, he's right there. If he's got his finger in your face and he's less than 6 feet away or whatever, and he's spewing spitum in your face, he's endangering your life, whether you're vaccinated or not, I think, and your nephew's life.
It's true. And so what I do is...
I keep my distance.
Is I have my mask on, and if somebody tries to come up to me without a mask, it's like, hand out, stop. And it's going to be interesting because they just totally lifted the mask restriction in where we live right now as of yesterday, except in schools. And so tonight we're going to go to see a performance at our daughter's school.
Which is outdoors.
And nobody is going to be wearing masks but us. It'll be interesting because we are going to be wearing masks, Like the hard thing for me is if I'm with somebody for long enough, I need a drink or else I'm offered tea, or maybe they've invited me to eat over. It's, remembering to keep that 6 feet is like I played games with them and I didn't put my mask on because I was drinking tea, so... Anyway,
it's
I'm
a conundrum.
Perfect.
It's a conundrum, man. It's tough.
If I give it to somebody that I love, I will be devastated.
I would be devastated too.
All right. Well, I really think this was a good discussion.
Yeah, thanks for the cast, man.
Yeah, it was fun, and we, like Russell said, we want your comments because we don't know where the truth is.
We're just trying to freely discuss and have an open and honest discourse.
Yeah, and that is the way we will find the truth.
And that's the way we'll move forward, too. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And make this world a better place for everyone.
Yeah, have humanity come together with a common goal.
We're all on this spaceship together.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's work on this pandemic as a united people.
I would love that.
Me too. Thanks for listening.
This has been the JoJo and Joe Show. Thanks for listening. Until next time.